My name is David. I used to be the head of the cane crime family, said to be the largest group in the Kanto region. That was just until recently, though. Now I've handed over the leadership seat to my son, and as chairman, I'm taking it easy. Thinking about enjoying some of the things I never got to experience before. One of those things is visiting this rustic hot spring inn. Up until now, I mostly went to high-end inns because I was the head of the group. But now, in my older years, I've come to appreciate the calm and simplicity of a rustic inn. To unwind and relieve all that built-up stress, a place like this is perfect. An open-air bath surrounded by rocks, with nothing but mountains in view. This quiet inn barely has any other guests, and when I walk down the hallway, it creaks with each step. There's an old ping-pong table and even a rare jukebox from back in the day. After finishing my soak in the hot spring, I reach for a bottle of iced latte from a nearly empty fridge. Nothing beats this after a hot bath. I mutter to myself, then sink into a massage chair that starts up after popping in a coin. After enjoying the bath, I head back to my room. On the way, I pass by the gift shop, but it doesn't offer much of interest. Well, this is quite something. Not a single item here catches my eye. Just then, I hear the voice of the innkeeper. Please, I'm begging you, enough already. Come on, Miss Innkeeper. Even if you say that, you're still running a business here. We're just making sure you can run it safely. That's a mutually beneficial arrangement, right? But I really can't pay anymore. What do you mean? You've got a nice place here. No reason you can't pay. But hardly any guests come by these days. Then advertise more. Are you promoting this place at all? Or are you slacking off? I'd like to, but I don't have the money for that. Hey now, you don't need money to advertise these days. Use social media, get the word out yourself. If you do that, plenty of folks will see it. No money required. You can't complain about guests not showing up if you're not even trying. I am trying, believe me, but this inn is falling apart in places. Then fix it. Leaving it broken and saying you can't is just an excuse, isn't it? Repairs cost money, too. Look, you want guests to come, right? Then focus on fixing up the inn first. Or heck, why not market it as a charming old place? Then nobody would mind the worn-down look, they'd come here because of it. Yes, I suppose, but it's not exactly bringing in money right away. Yeah, I get that. So as I said, I really can't make any more payments. Hey now, that's not what I want to hear. We're just politely asking you to pay the protection fee. That's all there is to it. So why try to shut it down with a simple I can't? But I'm telling you, there's no money. And like I said, without guests, it's just impossible. Come on, now. Look, there's even an old man over there browsing souvenirs. He's a guest, isn't he? That's what you need to do, serve the customers you have. That'll draw more in over time. Even if you say that. Is that old guy here alone? No, he's not. How many in his group? It's a party of 3. See? You've got 3 guests, don't you? That's enough to cover this month's protection fee. Don't go saying there aren't any guests when there clearly are. Yes, but even with 3 guests, there's barely any profit. I just can't manage the protection fee on top of everything else. And I'm not running this inn alone. I have to pay the maids, the chef, even the doorman. No matter what you say, it's simply impossible to pay. I don't care about any of that. That's your problem to figure out, not ours. Enough already. It's been a rule to pay every month since the previous owner's time. But that was back when we had more guests, and it was the last owner's agreement, not mine. I never agreed to it. You think you don't have to follow the previous owner's agreements? Even out here in the sticks. You've managed to stay in business because the Kingston crime family has been watching over you. We've been protecting this place all these years. Now, you're just going to ignore that? Please, I'm begging you. Just leave me be. It's hard enough to keep this in running as it is. Listen here. Keep this up, and you're going to regret it. You keep saying you can't pay, you can't pay. Maybe we should just smash up this place so you'll never be able to open again. What? We wouldn't mind. It's an old, rundown inn anyway, we can destroy it anytime. No. In that case, there wouldn't be any inns left, would there? So, you wouldn't have to pay protection fees anymore, right? Yeah, that's true. If that happens, you wouldn't have to pay anymore. That might actually work out better for you, don't you think? You got it. We're serious here. I'll be back tomorrow, so have it ready by then. The men left the inn, but their words were clearly meant to intimidate. Once they were gone, the innkeeper sank to the ground, looking as if she might collapse at any moment. Ma'am. I spoke gently to the innkeeper, who seemed lost in despair. She looked at me with vacant eyes, but as soon as she realized I was a guest, she managed to smile. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. What's going on? Those men looked like mob. Ah, yes, actually, they are. I heard something about a protection fee? Yes, they're demanding a monthly protection fee, but as you can see, we barely have any guests. And with the protection fee to pay every month, it's impossible to make ends meet. Yet they've come again this month. Sounds like they're really pushing you. Yes, which is why I'm planning to close the inn at the end of this month. Really? Is that so? Yes, you're our final guest. I thought we might close without anyone else visiting. But I'm grateful to have at least one guest for the inn's final days. I see. Yes. I've done everything I could, but it's reached its limit. The place is falling apart. I've polished every day. But there's only so much you can do without real repairs. Are you truly okay with closing the inn? Well, it's a little embarrassing to tell you, but my grandmother started this inn. She raised my mother alone with its income. My mother often said it was only because of this inn that she could raise me. Later, she married, but my father didn't like working, so they divorced. And the inn once again supported my family. It's been passed down to me, the third generation. I've tried to keep it going. But with the protection fees rising, I simply can't keep up. So, even though I don't want to close, I have no choice. The innkeeper looked around the inn, her gaze lingering. I see. So, this inn has been the lifeline for 3 generations. Yes, so, ideally, I wouldn't want to close it. But I suppose I have to. I understand. I looked at the old inn thoughtfully, then spoke up again. Ma'am. Yes? If the protection fee were gone, would you continue running this inn? Yes, without the protection fee, we could manage, even on a smaller scale. We do still have some loyal guests. I see. Which group are those men with? The Kingston crime family. Got it. I'll take care of this for you. What? But? Look, I'm the chairman of the Kane crime family, the largest group in the Kanto region. There's nothing I can't handle. Oh, so you're in the mob? Sorry if I startled you. The 2 men with me are senior members of my group. One of my top men insisted on sending them along since I was visiting a hot spring. I thought I wouldn't need them. But it seems like they'll come in handy after all. So don't worry about it. I'll make sure your inn is safe. But I don't want to be a burden. It's no trouble. I have some free time on my hands. But even if you help, I can't offer any kind of reward. We're really struggling. You don't need to worry about that. Just an old man's whim. Besides, this inn carries the memories of the previous owners. I'd hate to see it shut down. And if nothing else, it'll be a nice way to pass the time. Oh, things can't be expressed in words. Thank you so much. No need to thank me. I haven't even done anything yet. With that, I stepped away from the innkeeper and returned to my room. As I entered, my two senior members, noticing my return, greeted me with a bow, seated respectfully on the floor. Welcome back, Mr. Kane. Hey, did you two get to try the hot springs yet? No, not yet. I see. Well, before that, it looks like we have a little something interesting to take care of. Interesting? Yeah, a little helping hand. When I said that, the two of them exchanged puzzled looks. I explained what I had just witnessed to them. As expected from a senior member of the Kane group. He frowned upon hearing my words. That's unforgivable. Should we go pay them a visit? Charging in with just the three of us might not be wise. We don't know how many they have. We'll end up getting beaten ourselves if we're not careful. So, call Owen and have him gather some men. Once they're here, we'll go and show them what's what. Understood. Eric, one of my senior members, immediately contacted Owen and relayed my orders. Owen agreed and promised to send reinforcements our way. It was the following day. I got a message from Owen saying that the members had gathered and were on their way over here. Thinking it was just a matter of waiting now, I settled into a sofa in the first floor lounge. But soon enough, the same men from yesterday barged in again. Hey! We're here to collect the protection money. The two mob men strutted in, voices loud and overbearing. Mr. Kane, looks like it's them. Yeah, looks like they showed up a bit early. What should we do? Want to take them down now? Let's try talking first. If we get rough here, the staff might be scared. Good point. As they were talking, the innkeeper came over from the back. She looked as if she was completely troubled. The other staff had paused their work, watching anxiously. Well, lady. Got the money ready, I hope? Well, the thing is. What do you mean, the thing is? Don't tell me you can't pay. Yes, as things stand, there's just no way to come up with that amount. If you can't pay, then use that body of yours to earn the money. One night's work would cover it, wouldn't it? Stop making excuses. With that, he knocked over a vase on the front desk. The beautifully arranged flowers tumbled to the floor, and he crushed them under his foot. Hey, take it easy there. No need for rough stuff. What was that? Sir, didn't you know? Collecting protection money is illegal these days. Even in a quiet hot spring town like this, you can't escape the law. Who the hell are you? Some cop or something? Nah, I'm not with the police. Ha! Like the mob cares about the law. Are you stupid? These days, you'd better know the law if you want to avoid getting busted. Just because you're a mobster doesn't mean you're above justice. Shut up. Don't go acting all high and mighty with us. You're just some guest here to soak in the hot springs. If you don't want to get hurt, sit down and stay quiet. Can't do that. I made a promise to this innkeeper yesterday. I don't know what kind of promise you made, but you'd be wise to stay out of our business. Maybe it's you who should keep quiet and avoid any trouble. What was that, old man? Do you know who you're talking to? Doesn't matter who you are. Just a couple of low-level thugs, I guess. Who are you calling low-level thugs? We're members of the Kingston crime family. We've got a bit of a reputation around here. If you mock us, you'll regret it. Seems to me you'll be the ones regretting it. If you need funds for your group, try making an honest living somewhere else. What we do and where we do it is none of your business. Lady, if you're going to ask for help, Maybe you should have chosen someone better than this old guy. Hate to disappoint, but while I may be old, I've got 2 young men here with me. Think you 2 can take them on? 2 on 2? We're not worried. You're truly a reckless bunch. Mr. Kane, should we take care of these guys? Kane? I don't care who he is, if he thinks he can take us down, he's got another thing coming. We've never lost a fight. Well, I'd rather not cause any trouble inside the inn if I can avoid it. I glanced briefly at the innkeeper. Her face was pale. If we started a brawl here, something in this inn she cared about would probably get destroyed. And I didn't want to see her hurt by that. Take it outside. What's wrong with here? If we fight here, something in the inn will get broken. Don't you get that? Who cares if this rundown inn stuff gets smashed? It'll be shut down soon anyway. And why's that? That's up to the innkeeper, but if she can't pay the protection fee, this place is done for. I see. You people really are rotten to the core. But I have no intention of letting this inn close. Like I care. Eric, take these fools outside and deal with them. Understood. My senior members stepped forward, grabbed the 2 thugs by their arms, and hauled them out the door. Hey, what the hell are you doing? You just heard the chairman, didn't you? He told us to take you out. What? Prepare yourselves. You went and crossed Mr. Kane, chairman of the Kane crime family. You'll see what that means soon enough. The Kane crime family. That's right. That man over there is Mr. Kane himself. You're lucky he isn't taking you on himself, he might have ended your lives if he did. But since it's just us, we'll spare you that much. Don't give me that crap. I don't care if you're the Kane crime family. We're the Kingston crime family, and here on our turf, things run our way. No matter who you are. Save it. In a fight, there's no turf, you're just flies buzzing around. Alright, enough talk. Take them down quickly. We don't want a scene scaring away any guests. Yes, Mr. Kane. Alright then, nothing personal, yeah? With that, my senior members charged at the 2 men. The thugs tried to run, startled by the speed of their attack, but there was no escape. As they seized the men, fists flew, landing squarely on their faces. The men were pinned to the ground before they had a chance to fight back, taking a final blow. Idiots. Thinking they could stand up to us with that kind of strength? They're like helpless babies. Just then, Eric's phone rang. Mr. Kane, it's from our underboss. He says the reinforcements have arrived and are waiting outside the Kingston crime family office. Good. They got here faster than I expected. Alright, take these 2 along as a little gift for the Kingston crime family. Yes, sir. Ma'am, do you have anything we can use to tie these guys up? They might start thrashing around otherwise. Oh. Yes. I'll get something right away. The innkeeper rushed inside and returned with some rope. This is all I could find. That'll do just fine. It's just trash we're tying up, after all. I handed the rope to my senior members, who bound the men and tossed them into the inn's van. Don't worry. I'll settle things. Just wait for the good news. Thank you so much. With that, we started the van and headed for the Kingston crime family headquarters. Their office wasn't anything impressive, just a rundown building. From the steady traffic of men going in and out, it looked like they had a decent number of members. Hey, how many members does the Kingston crime family have? Oomph. We're a big group around here. They've got less than 50. Is that so? Less than 50, and that's a big group? Don't make me laugh. Hey, don't mock us. 50's plenty. The Kane crime family has 500. 50 doesn't even begin to compare. Shh. Look at all these cars parked around here. What's going on? Indeed, several cars and vans surrounded the building. Well, this should be enough, I said, stepping out of the car. The moment I appeared, my men spilled out from their cars, lining up in formation. Every one of them stood at attention, bowing their heads toward me. Good work, everyone. What is this? These are my men. Not even all of them, but I'm no fool. I didn't plan on taking on the Kingston crime family with just 3 guys. This many of you. With a force like this, even if they have 50 members, the Kingston crime family should be manageable. All right. Let's go pay Kingston's boss a visit. Leading the way, I headed to the 3rd floor office of the Kingston crime family. Behind me were 2 of their men, 2 senior members, and our senior member who'd just arrived. With this crew, we were more than prepared if things got ugly. I rang the doorbell, waiting for someone inside to open it. Soon, a junior member opened the door. I strode in without removing my shoes, stopping in the center of the room before tossing the 2 tied-up thugs onto the floor. What is this? A little gift. A gift? Who the hell are you? I'm David, chairman of the Kane crime family. Chairman of the Kane crime family? Why is the head of the Kane crime family? Mr. Kingston, the boss himself, couldn't hide his surprise at the sudden appearance of the Kane group. But we're Kane, the largest group in the region. Perhaps realizing it would be dangerous not to handle things calmly, he asked me to take a seat on the sofa. But around us, Kingston's men were tense, ready to pounce at any moment. I don't mind sitting, but could you calm down your soldiers? It's hard to have a civil conversation with this kind of atmosphere. Ah, yes, of course. Hey, you lot, sit down. And you, bring some tea for the chairman. Upon hearing his words, the members, still exuding a tense and intimidating atmosphere, reluctantly took their seats. Is this better? I nodded, taking a sip from the cheap tea they'd brought. So, can you tell me what's going on here? I fixed my gaze on Kingston, then glanced over at the 2 bound men, a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. So it seems your men have been demanding outrageous protection fees, haven't they? Wah! You see, I'm currently staying at a lovely inn run by a certain innkeeper. I stepped down as head of my group and decided to take it easy in the hot springs. It's a good inn, you know. Ever been there? No, not really. I don't usually visit local hot spring inns. Yeah, it's like that when places are close by, isn't it? But you should give it a try sometime. It's quite comfortable. Maybe, yeah. But, of course, if you go, you'd better make sure you don't look like a mob. Yes, naturally. It seems you understands, don't you? How much trouble it causes when mobs show up at a regular person's business, you know? Yes, of course. If they know we're mob, customers stay away. Exactly. So if that's the case, why are your men going in and out of that inn looking like thugs? Well, is it because you're in the middle of making money? Yeah. Oh, I see. But you know, these days, demanding protection fees isn't exactly legal. That's true. Right? You know what I mean, then. If the police catch wind of this, they'll start cracking down, and your men will end up in jail. So why are these guys demanding such ridiculous fees, and resorting to threats on top of that? Well, we're having financial troubles ourselves. In that case, you should find other ways to raise money. You don't have to go hounding a struggling inn for cash. But, protection fees have been a tradition for ages. Tradition? Do you think that poor inn, on the brink of closing down, can survive with fees like that? In the old days, mob believed in keeping the weak alive but not thriving, but you're out here squeezing the life out of them. And your men's methods are downright abusive. Even if you say that. Mr. Kane, sure, your group is big, but I'd appreciate it if you stayed out of our business. Oh, is that so? We're not under your organization, nor are we allied. This is our way of doing things. I'd rather you didn't interfere. So what you're saying is that I'll have to make you understand by force? What? You're telling me you won't understand unless I convince you, is that it? No, Look, I didn't come here to start a fight. I came here to talk. If you keep doing things like this, there won't be any honest folks left to run these inns. Even in a hot springs area, if no one's willing to operate an inn, you won't be getting anything out of it either, will you? Well, that's true. Then it'd be better to resolve this peacefully, wouldn't it? I understand your point, but those protection fees are an essential part of our group's income. I can't just give that up. You're really making this difficult. I've said I don't want to fight, but you're not making it easy to avoid. Look, every place has its own way of doing things. Just like you have your own way over there. No sooner had he said that than Kingston stood up, looking ready to charge at me. At that moment, the other members also began throwing punches all at once. But just then, the two tied-up men on the floor struggled to warn him. No, boss. There are tons of the Kane crime family men outside. If we start something, we'll be crushed. Boss, please stop. Hearing that voice, Kingston moved closer to the window and looked outside. What caught his eye was a fleet of cars and members of the Kane group. No way, why are so many of the Kane crime family here? Don't underestimate the Kane crime family. With a single word from me, I can gather this many men. Everyone, stop. Stop right now. If you don't want this group to be destroyed, stand down. Kingston's men froze, lowering their fists at his command. I don't think we really need a group like yours. It might be better to just wipe it out. No, please. If this group is destroyed, it's not just me, all my men will be left on the streets. Please, don't take down my group. The fierce resolve he had shown earlier had completely vanished, and Mr. Kingston sank to the floor in desperation. Seeing their leader bowing in defeat, all the Kingston crime family members followed suit, dropping to their knees in apology. Well, if the boss bows, the men follow, huh? Looks like your guys are loyal to you, Mr. Kingston. Yes, they're good men. Please, anything but destroying the group. You think I can just let this go because you asked nicely? Maybe not, but from now on, we won't collect any more protection fees. We'll figure out other ways. Just, please, spare the group. Mr. Kingston bit his lip, looking anguished, and lowered his head further in apology. All right, if you're promising to put an end to this for good, then I'll hold off on destroying your group. But that doesn't mean we're done here. You've extorted quite a bit from that in over time, haven't you? I expect you to pay it all back. We don't even know how much we've collected over the years. Is that so? I suppose it's hard to keep track of, isn't it? Yes, exactly. So, if we agree not to collect any more from them, fine, we'll overlook what you've taken so far, but you'll still owe a penalty fee. A penalty fee? That's right. About $1 million should cover it. $1 million. But we don't have that kind of money. There isn't enough in our reserves. Then take out a loan. Conveniently, I've got our loan specialist here. Perfect timing, wouldn't you say? A loan. Yes, we'll loan you $1 million, and you can pay it back that way. Understood. I'll have those two pay it back. What? Boss, we can't handle a $1 million debt. Shut up. You're the ones who caused this mess. You'll take out the loan and pay it off. Good. Get Sean over here and have him draw up the paperwork. Upon giving the order, Eric took out his phone and contacted Sean. When Sean, who had been waiting outside, came running over, I instructed them to each lend $500,000. Now, you two will each get $500,000, but you'll be working it off on a crab fishing boat. Nothing to it, just a bit cold out there. You'll get used to it soon enough. Just make sure you don't fall overboard, alright? Nobody's coming to save you if you do. Boss. Stop crying. This is for the sake of the group, so go out there and work hard. Once the two were taken away, I gathered my senior members and we headed back to the inn. Oh, welcome back. And, thank you so much. Sorry if we caused you any worry. Taking the $500,000 from Sean, I handed it to the innkeeper. This here is the penalty fee I wrung out of Mr. Kingston. Use it to rebuild this inn. What? It might not cover everything you've paid over the years, but it's a start. And you won't have to worry about the Kingston crime family coming back. If, by some slim chance, they ever do, you call me right away. Understand? I've decided to keep an eye on this place myself. As long as I'm around, I won't let anything like this happen to you again. Oh, thank you. I don't even know how to express my gratitude. No need for thanks. But in return, let my men enjoy the hot springs. They came all the way from Kanto, after all. And I'd like them to try the food here too. But, so many of them. Don't worry. I'll cover all the costs. Don't go giving us discounts either. I'm the chairman of the Kane crime family, I can handle it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything, even for your men. They're like family to me. Alright, listen up, you lot. No acting tough or causing trouble. Don't do anything to bother the innkeeper. We're staying just one night, and then tomorrow, we're out of here. The members were overjoyed, thinking they'd get to soak in the hot springs. The staff, too, hurriedly began preparing the rooms, saying, "We'll get everything ready right away." A couple of months later, I received an invitation from the inn. It was from the newly renovated establishment, with a note from the innkeeper filled with words of gratitude. "We're a family of elites, so a poor high school dropout like you should just leave." My mother-in-law, Shelley, said this as she shoved my sister, Macy. Because she judges everything by academic background, Shelley doesn't see Macy's true qualities. That's probably why she can say such cruel things. Not wanting Macy around for even a second, Shelley was trying to drive her out of the workplace right at the spot. Watching this unfold, I couldn't help but let something slip. "Well then, your husband is fired." Shelley was shocked, and I ended up explaining the situation to her. In truth, it wasn't something I should have said, but there's a deep reason behind it. When Shelley heard the reason, she was left in a state of stunned silence. It seemed she really had no idea. As I spoke, Shelley grew increasingly confused. "My name is Mason Cole. I'm a 38-year-old man who dreams of having a pet. I have a wife named Yvonne. She's a year younger than me at 37, and was my junior in high school. Like me, Yvonne is interested in having a pet. So, we're thinking it might be time to welcome a dog or cat into our lives." When we discussed it, our conversation went like this. "Do you have any preference for the breed, Yvonne?" "No, not at all. Mixed breeds are totally fine, and I think adopting a rescued pet would be great. At first, we thought of adopting from a pet shop. But now we're considering helping animals that have been abandoned or mistreated by their previous owners. Right now, we're attending a few adoption events, looking for a pet that would be a good match for us. The reason I want to bring a pet into my life goes back to an experience I had as a child. I grew up with my father, mother, sister, and a male dog named Shadow, but I lost much of my family in a car accident. When my sister and I were paralyzed with shock after the crash, Shadow pulled us from the car, saving our lives. Shadow ran back to our parents, only to be caught in the explosion when the car went up in flames. Of course, our parents didn't survive either, and we could only stand there, crying as we watched the scene. Mason, Mom and Dad are gone. What's going to happen to us? I don't know, Macy. I really don't know. To this day, I regret not being able to comfort my sister Macy as she sobbed. The happiness we had vanished in an instant, and that was the hardest day of my life. After that, my sister and I were taken in by our grandparents, but that incident left a dark shadow in our hearts. I once vowed never to have another pet, yet here I am, feeling drawn again to the warmth I had as a child and ready to welcome a pet once more. You were saved by a dog once, weren't you? That's why you chose to work in the pet industry, right? Yeah, I want to pay back the kindness Shadow showed me by helping other animals. After graduating from college, I founded a company that sells pet supplies, and now I work as its president. One of my wishes now is to make the new pet I welcome into my life as happy as possible, in memory of Shadow. So every day, I work hard to achieve this goal. Driving to work and admiring the fully bloomed cherry blossoms, I walked through the company building. Employees around me greeted me as I passed by. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. It's a beautiful day, isn't it?" Their faces looked lively and motivated. I always try to stay aware of how my team is doing because I want to keep a close eye on the well-being of everyone in the company. Today, seeing that there weren't any issues, I felt relieved. It's been around 20 years since I started this company, and we've never had any major problems. I understood that smooth operations require not just a few executives but the strength and dedication of a large number of general employees. Perhaps that's because I remember my father confiding in my mother about the struggles at his own company. A few of the so-called elites tend to go overboard, making things tough for the rank-and-file employees. We'd be lost without them. But the higher-ups don't understand that. They threaten people with termination to keep them in line. All right, I understand. But please don't vent like that in front of the kids. I'll listen as much as you need. My father seemed to have quite a grumbling nature, and whenever things got tough, he would rely on my mother to lend an ear. But it's probably these memories that helped me manage to run this company. Lost in my thoughts about the past, I found myself arriving at my office. I entered the room, took out my work tools, and immediately got down to business. There's a mountain of tasks to tackle, but I have to stay on top of things for the 4,000 employees working at this company. As I reviewed the documents, I looked over the materials on the dog crate design from the development department and scheduled upcoming meetings with major clients. Tonight, I'll enjoy a nice dinner and get to see Macy after so long. I'd better bring my A game. The workload is heavy, but to keep my motivation up, I thought about tonight's plans and muttered to myself. When you're immersed in work, time really flies by. Though it felt like I had just arrived, it was already lunchtime. Right then, the announcement came over the PA system, letting everyone know it was break time. Is it that time already? Working nonstop probably isn't efficient, so I'll take a short break. I set aside the stack of papers and pulled out the lunchbox my wife had made for me. Filled with my favorite foods and a good amount of vegetables, I could feel her care in it, and it soothed my tired mind. As I enjoyed the meal, thoughts of welcoming a new pet into our lives crossed my mind. Just as I finished eating, I noticed an email from Yvonne on my phone. It was about the dinner plans we had tonight. Tonight, it'll be me, Yvonne, and my mother-in-law, Shelley, having dinner together. However, it seems Shelley will be running a bit late. Mom said she's not coming after all. Do you think she really dislikes Macy that much? Feeling a bit disappointed, I replied with a simple, "Got it," and turned my gaze away from the screen. I married Yvonne when I was 20, so we've been together quite a while now. However, I haven't had many opportunities to talk with Shelley. One reason is that Shelley runs a well-known advertising agency. With her busy schedule, I couldn't ask her to make time, so we haven't had many chances to connect. Another reason is her focus on academic backgrounds. She seems to think like this about people with lower education levels. I just don't want to associate with people who only have a high school diploma or less. I mean, they haven't properly learned what they should. Right? Being around people like that could lead to rude behavior. I want to properly introduce my sister Macy to Shelley, but that belief of hers has made it difficult. After all, Macy only graduated from middle school. She endured a lot of bullying from other girls in school, so she managed to finish middle school but didn't go on to high school. Maybe she grew tired of trying to navigate relationships. Mason, I don't want to go to school anymore. I'm scared of being around people. Back then, I was determined to raise Macy well as her older brother, but hearing that made me feel powerless. Thankfully, Macy was able to recover a few years later, but since Shelley knows she didn't complete high school, she's unwilling to meet her. I wish they could somehow come to an understanding, but I still don't know how to make that happen. A few hours later, after finishing work, I headed to a particular hotel. I walked under a Norin curtain with a Japanese design, and a woman greeted me with a welcome. I casually spoke to her. Are you doing your job properly? Not slacking off, I hope. We've got some important guests tonight. Of course. I've put my best effort into tonight's dishes, so be sure to savor them. The person who brought me a hand towel and a glass of water was my sister, Macy. She has been cooking at the restaurant for over a decade as an apprentice. She fell in love with the taste of Japanese cuisine at her coming-of-age ceremony and became an apprentice. Now, she's training hard to eventually take over the restaurant. You're not causing any trouble for the owner, are you? Of course not. When Mason's running your company as president and I'm managing this place, we'll easily be able to care for a pet or two. I need to work hard for that, too. Well, that sounds good, then. Oh, don't believe me? If you keep talking like that, I'll load your meal with extra chili peppers. Since Macy and I live separately, it's been a while since we've seen each other. Because our homes are a bit far apart, we can't just casually drop by each other's places. So even small conversations feel special and make me happy. Back when she was in middle school, she used to call me Big Brother, but now she just calls me by my name. It's a bit lonely, but I take it as a sign of her independence and hold back from saying anything. Maybe that's why we were joking around so much. Am I being left out while you flirt here? You two seem to be getting along well. Yvonne teased as she arrived a bit late. She joined me at the table, and Macy went back to the kitchen to bring her a hand towel and a glass of water. She's my sister, you know that, right? Of course. I was just teasing you. By the way, where's Shelley? Yvonne slurred her words as she averted her gaze. She looks at Mason with an apologetic expression. It seems Dad mentioned to Mom that she'd be seeing Macy here tonight, and she got upset and decided she didn't want to come. I was hoping to keep it a secret until we actually got here to avoid this. I see. I figured that might happen, but it's still disappointing. Hearing this, I remembered the apologetic look on the face of one of my male employees I spoke to before leaving the office. Truthfully, I had already been informed by one of my employees that Shelley wouldn't be coming tonight. Even though I knew ahead of time, it still felt like a blow to actually see it play out. Yvonne, who had received the hand towel and water from Macy, continued with a slight shrug. Mom's reputation as someone like that is well known in town. I'm sorry, Macy. No, it's okay. It's true that I only made it up to middle school. I expected this kind of reaction. Watching Macy reply so modestly made me feel a pang of sadness. Macy didn't go down the wrong path or struggle with schoolwork. She simply couldn't keep going to school because of a hostile environment, yet she's judged this way. I just wanted Shelley to see my sister as she truly is and to judge her for herself. Looking over at Macy, she stood there, looking downcast. Yvonne placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It'll be all right, Macy. You're a good person, and I'm sure Mom will come to understand that. I hope so. The restaurant owner kindly offered Macy a break, so the three of us ended up having our meal together. Yvonne sent Shelley a text just in case, but the only reply was, I have other plans and can't make it. In the end, Shelley never showed up. A few days later, I was about to see Shelley in a completely unexpected place. That day, I was lounging at home, enjoying a day off, when I realized the fridge was empty. Since it was nearly lunchtime, I decided to go out shopping, but on the way, I spotted a stray puppy wandering around. With no leash, it didn't seem like it had simply gotten away from the owner. The poor thing was covered in mud, likely from wandering around for days. Maybe it had been abandoned. It had rained just the other day, and the puppy was very dirty because of it. The area around my feet was especially bad, and the mud was gooey. Unable to just leave it there, I approached to try and help, but unfortunately, a car passed by, startling the puppy. Scared, it dashed away at full speed before I could do anything. At that point, there was no way a human could keep up. It was a young pup, but dogs are fast runners. Within seconds, it was out of sight. Worried, I looked around for a while, but couldn't find that muddy little puppy anywhere. While searching for the puppy, for some reason, I thought about the cat Shelley's family looks after. At Yvonne's parents' house, they have a female Maine Coon with a beautifully groomed coat. That cat, always lounging in an air-conditioned room and licking her clean fur, is surely still living a contented life. She was born to purebred Maine Coons, but would she have been given such a comfortable environment if she were a mixed breed? I remember Shelley's words when she introduced her cat. "Our cat comes from a solid pedigree." Impressive, isn't it? She's different from those stray mixed-breed dogs and cats you see around. If we were to get another pet, I'd definitely want one from a well-bred line again. That puppy would likely never even be allowed inside her home if it were a mixed breed. In fact, if it happened to wander in by mistake, Shelley might even chase it out. I'm cautious about friends bringing over pets because my cat might get hurt if she interacts with mixed breeds. If they get into a fight and injure each other, well, that's their own problem. But I'd hate for my cat to get caught up in such aggressive behavior. Shelley probably wouldn't even worry if she saw an injured mixed breed animal. An hour later. Though feeling a bit down about the puppy, I headed to the grocery store. I felt sorry for that dog, but randomly searching wouldn't help, so I had to let it go. To my surprise, I ran into Shelley in the store I entered. It was unexpected to see her here, in this local supermarket that I often use. Because Shelley never wanted to go into these common stores. Yvonne had told me that she always went shopping at high-end department stores, but I wondered why. "Good to see you, Shelley." Since I couldn't just ignore her, I greeted her. Shelley looked at me with a surprised expression. "Oh, hello, Mason." As I wondered about her reaction, she quickly began explaining. "Don't get the wrong idea. I never come to these common supermarkets that only sell cheap items." Apparently, Shelley saw shopping at a supermarket as beneath her. She spoke in a way that could easily offend the hard-working women trying to save money on household expenses. "I'm meeting an old friend, and I just remembered that they have a child. I realized I forgot to bring a gift, so I came here. I couldn't just show up empty-handed, that would be rude, wouldn't it? I don't think it would be a big deal. While a gift is nice, if you're reconnecting with an old friend, it's probably not something they'd expect. Besides, there's no need to feel obligated to buy one out of sheer formality. Our family has the means, so it's only natural to make this effort." It seemed Shelley didn't want to talk about this any longer. As she quickly shifted the conversation back to me. "Mason, do you still shop at places like this? As a company president, you should shop somewhere that matches your status. I think you make a fair point, but I've never really gotten used to luxury. I thought of the employees working in my company. Some of them work hard with the aim of enjoying the finer things in life. For someone in my position, living according to my income is probably expected. However, I grew up in modest circumstances. And that's largely thanks to my grandparents, who raised us for many years. Having experienced a time with few possessions, they taught us how to make do with what we had, and it's made me live in a similar way even now. As a president, I know my lifestyle might make it harder for others to indulge, but my life runs smoothly with discounted or frozen foods. So I haven't felt the need to change." As I explained, Shelley suddenly noticed something. "So Macy works here, huh? Huh? Confused as to why she'd bring up Macy, I followed her gaze. There, at the cash register, was Macy. It looked like she'd taken on a job here in addition to her work at the Japanese restaurant. I had no idea she was working here. She must have picked up this job without telling me. What do you think of that, Mason? You're a president, yet your sister. Of course, Shelley had no idea that Macy was employed at a reputable restaurant. She knew a bit about my background, but since she'd never interacted with Macy, she had almost no understanding of her. She'd probably never guessed that the restaurant she was invited to was where Macy worked. That place, nestled within a luxury hotel, is well known, especially for its authentic Japanese cuisine prepared by Japanese chefs, so if Shelley knew, she'd surely be stunned. She only made it to middle school, so of course, she can't get any decent job. If she can only manage this kind of work, who knows what kind of crude things Macy might say. Hearing those words, I felt anger well up inside me. In my line of sight, Macy was smiling and chatting warmly with the customers at the register. One of her best qualities is her ability to connect with each person with kindness and a cheerful spirit. I wished Shelley could put aside her fixation on academic credentials and see the person standing in front of her for who she truly is. How embarrassing it must be to work so happily at a job anyone could do. I believe every job is honorable. It's not right to talk like that. Sure, jobs that require rare skills are impressive, but that doesn't make other jobs any less valuable. Every job is essential, and if there were no one to do it, we'd all be in trouble. I wondered why Shelley thought that way. And choosing my words carefully, I tried to get her to reconsider. Yes, being a middle school graduate may limit her job options, but that doesn't define her entire future. Please don't judge someone solely based on their educational background. Shelley looked at me, surprised, as if she hadn't expected me to disagree. That's just idealism. Reality isn't so kind. That might be true. But even people with prestigious jobs aren't always happy. Isn't that also a reality? If someone is happy in their work, isn't that enough? In fact, I was relieved Macy hadn't been forced into further education that might have broken her spirit. If I had pressured her to conform to societal expectations and something had happened, I would never have been able to face my parents in the afterlife. After sharing my thoughts, I watched Shelley's reaction. She lowered her gaze, muttering with dissatisfaction, "Education is important. Mason, you're wrong." With that, Shelley, for some reason, began walking toward Macy. Sensing an uneasy tension, I quickly followed after her. A few seconds later, Shelley approached Macy at the register and spoke to her in a cold, flat voice. "Because of you, Mason's perspective has become so warped. Do you realize you're just a burden to him? It's appalling how much trouble you've caused the family." Shocked by Shelley's sudden appearance, Macy stood frozen, looking utterly confused. "If I were him, I wouldn't recognize someone like you as family. If it weren't for you, I'd have no objections to Mason and Yvonne being together." Hearing this, Macy's face fell as she looked down, tears welling up. Perhaps it triggered memories of the bullying she endured in middle school. I rushed to protect Macy, a precious part of my family, but I was a bit too late. "I've reached my limit. I don't want you anywhere near us anymore. Leave this place immediately." With those words, Shelley shoved Macy, who was still standing there in shock. "We're an elite family. Poor, uneducated people like you should go home." Arriving at the scene, I took in what had happened with rising anger. Anger like I had never felt before. So I did something I shouldn't have as the president of a company. "Then consider your husband fired." Shelley stared at me, stunned, as she gasped, "What? I'm the president of a company with 4,000 employees, one of whom is your husband." Even Macy looked at me, equally puzzled. "I knew you were a president, but I had no idea there were so many employees." Shelley, so focused on education, had paid little attention to anything else. She didn't seem to know much about me or even her own husband. For now, I needed to calm the situation, as people around us had started to take notice. Shortly after, Ryan, the store manager, arrived, having heard the commotion, and I briefly explained the situation to him. Ryan, out of kindness, offered us the use of the employee lounge to discuss things privately. Inside the lounge, a large table and several chairs allowed us to sit down and settle ourselves. Since Macy was still on her shift, she remained at the register. The lounge seemed to have been used recently, as there were items left scattered on the table, likely left behind by employees who had hurriedly exited to give us privacy. There were dolls made of beads, some candy, and notebooks for studying on the table. Shelley, sitting across from me, watched my face, clearly noting my frustration. "Do you really not understand why I'm angry?" "I don't." "Have I been disrespectful to you in some way?" Shelley truly didn't seem to grasp the reason for my anger. For her, judging others by their education level was just a normal part of life. "You haven't done anything to me personally, but I can't ignore the disrespectful way you spoke to Macy." "And why is that?" "Surely, you must wish she wasn't your sister." Shelley tilted her head, frowning. I tried to recall if I'd ever acted in a way that could have given her such a misunderstanding, but I couldn't remember anything of the sort. I've always treated Macy with care and respect. I've never once thought of Macy as a burden or a hindrance. Even though she's only a middle school graduate? Even though all she can do is work part-time at a register? Shelley glanced toward the room's entrance, but I kept my eyes fixed on her. I knew I had to maintain eye contact to convey my true feelings. "Are you proud of family only if they're well-educated? If they're intelligent, they're needed; if not, they're disposable? That's just common sense, isn't it?" I wondered if Shelley thought the same way about her own daughter, Yvonne. I felt a surge of anger, a strong urge to shout at her, but I barely managed to hold it in. Out of her sight, I clenched my fists tightly on my lap. I believe a person's worth isn't defined solely by their education. Macy's value is shown through her actions and her words. Couldn't you, just once, look at Macy for who she truly is? Shelley looked a bit taken aback by my words and picked up one of the beaded dolls on the table. She arranged the dolls so that one was isolated, with the others distanced from it. People without proper education are all unreliable. I've seen plenty of such people myself, and besides, my parents, whom I deeply respect, always said the same. They can't be wrong. Her expression turned oddly sad as she flicked the isolated doll, causing it to topple over. Shelley, who's lived longer than I have, might have her own painful past that shaped her views. But I couldn't accept her outright dismissal of Macy's entire being. So, I decided to tell her something I'd been keeping to myself. "All right. Then, you'd reject your husband, too, if he's no longer elite?" Shelley's face shifted, and she looked at me with a sudden intensity. "What are you talking about? You mentioned something earlier, what did you mean by that?" Clearly, she had no idea. She focused so much on education that she hadn't truly looked at the people around her. I decided to give Kent, Shelley's husband, a call. After a few minutes on the phone, I turned back to Shelley. "Shelley, please listen to me calmly." With Kent's permission, I knew I had to tell her everything. Shelley seemed to sense that something unusual had happened. She listened to my story with a stern expression on her face. "Don't keep me in suspense. What's going on with my husband?" "He was laid off from his previous company a few months ago." "What?" "But I took him in and hired him at my own company. He has a strong knowledge of cats, so he's been a valuable asset." Shelley looked shocked, her gaze fixed on the toppled doll in front of her. "How did this happen?" "It started over something minor, apparently. He got into a fight with his boss after his boss insulted you and Yvonne." "Kent? He's so mild-mannered." I'd felt the same way when I first heard the story. I'd met Kent a few times, and he had always come across as a calm and reserved person. However, it seemed to be true that Kent had gotten into a fight. For him to get angry, what could have possibly happened? Shelley asked, clearly unsettled. Recalling what I knew, I began explaining to her. Both Yvonne and you are devoted to volunteer work, aren't you? Yes, that's right. We try to participate in charity events and local cleanups whenever we can. Shelley, despite her differing values, had a kind side and often volunteered to help those in need or to improve the local community. Yet, there are people who can't understand why anyone would do such things. Unbelievable. I can't understand that. What Yvonne and Shelley do is admirable. But sadly, there are people who see it as nothing more than hypocrisy. Kent's boss ridiculed you and Yvonne for volunteering for selfish reasons and said that you girls were living a lavish lifestyle using donated money. So Kent got angry. As I continued detailing what I knew, Shelley held her head in her hands, clearly struggling to process everything. To think there are people who would see kindness or goodwill in that way. Then you probably feel the same way I do. Because I, too, cannot understand your idea of caring about educational backgrounds. Shelley looked at me, startled, as if something had dawned on her. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then closed it, remaining silent. I'll excuse myself for today. I'm in no state of mind to think clearly. I understand. I nodded in agreement, feeling equally drained. I knew that pushing my opinion on her would not guarantee that she would change her mind right now. So, perhaps some time apart to cool off and think things over would do us both good. Shelley stood up after carefully putting the beaded dolls back in place. All the dolls now formed a friendly circle. Just before leaving the room, she turned back to me with a question. Earlier, were you serious about firing my husband? I apologize. I went too far. I don't intend to use my position to do such a thing, so please don't worry. Good. Shelley sighed with relief, her face showing signs of exhaustion as she finally left the room. A few days later, while working at the office, I unexpectedly reunited with the puppy I'd been concerned about. Apparently, Kent had found the pup wandering near here earlier and had taken it in. He'd been returning from a client meeting as part of the sales team, and unable to leave the puppy stranded, he brought it back with him. Sorry for causing a fuss again. But I just couldn't leave it out there. When I went to the entrance after hearing from security that there was a bit of a commotion, I saw a somewhat apologetic Kent with the puppy playfully pawing at his leg. I'd been planning to rescue this pup myself, so no worries. I actually lost track of it the other day and was concerned. So I'm more grateful than anything. Thank you for saying so. But what should we do now? For now, we'll have to keep it somewhere safe until work ends. After that, I'll take it to the vet. A microchip might help us find the owner. It's unlikely, considering it might have been abandoned, but it's important to check. The owner might be worried somewhere, so we should make sure. Understood. I'll take responsibility and keep it with my department. Thank you. I appreciate it. Returning to my office, I worked with renewed focus, eager to finish early so I could get the puppy to the vet. Perhaps due to the increased pace, I wrapped up everything half an hour before the end of the workday, a personal record. In the late afternoon, I drove to the animal hospital with the puppy safely contained in a carrier. It was a stroke of luck that my company specializes in pet supplies. I never imagined a carrier from our stock would come in handy this way. Arriving at the hospital, I gently spoke to the puppy in the carrier as I got out of the car. Just hang in there a bit longer. I know it might be uncomfortable. Right at that moment, I ran into Shelley. She was carrying her pet, a female Maine Coon. It seemed like she was there for a regular checkup. I'm here for a checkup. What's that, puppy? It was abandoned, so I came to check if it has a microchip and get it looked at. I see. Must be tough with work and all. We continued our conversation without meeting each other's eyes as we awkwardly entered the clinic together. Since it was my first time, I was a bit unsure, but with Shelley's guidance, I managed to fill out the necessary information at the front desk. While waiting in the lobby, Shelley spoke to me again. "Your company deals with pet products, doesn't it? So this situation turned out a bit fortunate, right?" "Yes, it's been helpful." I feel like Shadow and Heaven would be a bit comforted by this. "Shadow? Did you have a pet before?" "Yes, back when I was a kid." Seeing Shelley's questioning look, I went on to tell her about the pet I used to have. Shelley sniffled slightly, whispering, "So, that happened." After that, we sat in silence for a while, but I noticed Shelley glancing over at the puppy in the crate I was holding. "Curious about it?" "Puppies are adorable, right?" "Of course, adult dogs have their charm too." "No, it's not that. I just don't get why you'd pay so much attention to a mixed breed like that. I mean, it doesn't do you any good." I sighed internally at her words. I had hoped that after our talk at the grocery store, she might have understood my perspective a bit, but that didn't seem to be the case. Choosing who to be with based on what benefits you might get from them feels a bit sad, doesn't it? Isn't it enough to be together simply because you like them? I continued, speaking softly as I looked around. The lobby was reasonably busy, but there wasn't anyone sitting close enough to overhear our conversation. Kent isn't exactly what you'd call an elite, is he? Plus, he was laid off. Wouldn't you consider leaving him? What are you saying? I could never do that. Why not? Don't you want to be part of a successful family? Well. Seeing her hesitate, I felt a small sense of relief. Shelley might deny it, but deep down, she probably knew the truth. She was wrong. Yet, her pride wouldn't let her admit it. Fine. If you're saying I should leave him, then I will. Yes, that's what I should do. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. That's what leads to our happiness. She said this in a strained voice, as if desperately trying to convince herself. To me, she looked fragile and painfully vulnerable. People never cared for me as a middle school graduate. It's only natural that they looked down on me. So I struggled and went to college to change my final education. My efforts were not wrong. Shelley's emotions seemed to spill over, and her voice grew louder. Others in the waiting room turned to look at us. I'm absolutely right. It's you all who are wrong. With that, Shelley stormed out of the clinic. Her Maine Coon, left behind on the chair where she'd been sitting, let out a sorrowful meow. I couldn't just leave her like that. Feeling worried, I contacted Yvonne and Kent to ask them to help find Shelley. After the puppy's checkup, I joined in the search myself. After checking several places, we eventually found ourselves by the riverbank. Kent was the first to find her and rushed over to her, who was sobbing by the riverbank. He gently rubbed her back. And only then did I finally feel a sense of relief. Shelley, I'm sorry. I didn't notice your pain, and I wish we'd talked more. I should have told you about the layoff. I know there must have been things that hurt you in the past. Later, I learned that Shelley and Kent spent about an hour there, talking things through. Kent later shared that Shelley once cared for an abandoned kitten by the riverbank, keeping it hidden from her family. Sadly, one day, that kitten was killed by a group of local teenagers. They didn't go on to high school, and they kept causing trouble around the riverbank, which made Shelley obsess over academic achievement. However, it seemed that talking with Kent had finally given her some relief. I've done terrible things to you and Macy. I'm truly sorry. Honestly, it's my fault too for not properly communicating with my wife. I'd like to apologize as well. I'm really sorry. With those words, both of them sincerely apologized to Macy and me. During that conversation, Macy finally shared that she was apprenticing at a well-known Japanese restaurant, and just as I expected, Shelley was surprised. After we wrapped up our talk, Shelley and Kent were thoroughly lectured by Yvonne for making everyone worry, and they both gave a tired smile. I've never seen our daughter so mad before. Same here. Yvonne's definitely not someone you want to upset. We might never be able to stand up to our daughter again. I never expected Shelley and I would agree on something like that. Anyway, the situation was resolved, and Shelley, Kent, and Yvonne got to spend some time together at their family home. But it seems things weren't so easy afterward. With everything that had happened lately, word had spread around the neighborhood. Shelley's behavior at the store and the vet clinic had made its way to quite a few people. I heard that lady has arguments with her husband every night. People who look so composed on the outside probably have a lot of pent-up stress. Which is kind of scary. I know, right? They always boasted about being an elite family, but I bet they're not as impressive on the inside. As a result, rumors started going around about them being on the verge of divorce, or that Shelley was causing trouble for her daughter's in-laws out of spite. Yvonne and I tried to deny these stories whenever we heard them, but Shelley stopped us. I'll accept it as my punishment for the things I've done. Don't worry about it. I'll work steadily to regain people's trust again. Shelley's expression looked oddly at peace as she said this. She and Kent were talking more than ever, so I want to believe that, even if things are rough now, they'll overcome it someday. Amid all this, we decided to keep a pet. Of course, it's the puppy we rescued at the company the other day. We named him Buddy, and he has quite the mischievous personality, keeping us busy every day. But watching him grow little by little brings us so much joy. You're getting bigger, Buddy. Keep growing strong. It's exciting, isn't it? Like us, Macy seems to be doing well. She still has much to learn as an apprentice, but lately, the owner has been trusting her with several menu items. She's even started to develop regular customers who come specifically for her cooking. And there's talk of her potentially taking over the restaurant someday. Still, she makes sure to rest on her days off, so I'm glad she's not pushing herself too hard. We've gone through a lot to get here, but it's moving to think she's so close to becoming a full-fledged chef. Today is one of those days where we get to spend time together at the park with Yvonne, Macy, and Buddy. Buddy! Look, here's the ball. I'm throwing it. Ha ha. If you throw it that far, Buddy might struggle. Oh, wow, look at him. He's jumping so high. Watching Buddy rush toward Macy, who he's grown so attached to, is such a sight. Macy ended up on the ground, covered in dirt after Buddy tackled her. It looked so funny that Yvonne and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Shadow and our parents aren't here with us, but I feel blessed to share these peaceful moments with my new family. What happened? My grandson, Keith, had left for the hotel where his company's entrance ceremony was being held, only to come back home about 30 minutes later. His face was clouded, and his steps were slow and heavy. Nothing. It's clearly not nothing. Would you talk to your grandpa about it? Keith kept his lips tightly sealed, but as I kept pressing, he finally told me what had happened. Apparently, the HR department had mistakenly reserved the hotel for the wrong time and changed the ceremony schedule the day before. Keith never received that notification. They said, "You probably just overslept and are lying about not getting the notice," and called me irresponsible. My wife tried to comfort him, gently placing a hand on his back, but suddenly, her hand froze. Her face grew paler and paler. Wondering what was going on, I moved behind Keith and immediately understood the reason. There it was, a sheet of A4 paper taped to his back. Seeing it made my blood boil. Don't worry. Grandpa's going to take care of this. I know exactly who's responsible. If we don't pull him from his position now, he could bring this whole company down. My name is Howard Smith, 65 years old. Up until age 60, I was the president of a major snack manufacturer. We specialized in rice snacks, but with changing times, our sales had dipped for a while. Then, a rice flour cookie we launched became a big hit. And the business recovered. Thanks to that success, I was able to retire on my own terms rather than being forced out. And I left the company in the hands of a trusted team member. Now, as chairman, I live peacefully with my wife and grandson. To my delight, that grandson, Keith, expressed his desire to join our company. He wanted to bring smiles to children's faces, just like he'd experienced when he enjoyed the treats we produced. Bringing smiles to many children aligns perfectly with our company's mission statement. I couldn't have been happier to hear such words from my beloved grandson. Wanting to rely solely on his own merits, Keith applied through the normal selection process and successfully earned an offer. I didn't make any recommendations on his behalf. With our common surname, Smith, no one realized he was my grandson during the hiring process. Today was his big day, the company's entrance ceremony. Okay, Grandpa, I'm off. Take care and enjoy yourself. Enjoy myself? At the entrance ceremony? I just hope I don't say something awkward from nerves. My wife and I saw him off, dressed in his brand new suit he still wasn't used to wearing. After the ceremony, there would be a welcoming reception. As my wife and I started to discuss what we'd have for lunch ourselves, we suddenly heard the door. I'm back. Keith had returned, barely half an hour later. His face was dark, his steps heavy. What could have happened to make Keith look so defeated? I felt a surge of anger. I almost demanded an explanation out of sheer frustration, but I softened my tone as much as I could, trying to keep calm. What happened? Nothing. It's clearly not nothing. Can't you tell Grandpa what's going on? Keith kept his mouth tightly shut, but after persistent questioning, he finally told me the whole story. I tried to get on the shuttle bus from the station, but it never showed up. Our house is a 5-minute walk from the station, and the hotel where the ceremony was held is about a 10-minute drive from there. Keith had left early enough to reach the station 10 minutes before the scheduled pickup. However, the bus didn't arrive, and not a single fellow newcomer was in sight. Feeling something was off, he called a few new hires he'd exchanged contact info with, but no one responded. He then called the company directly, only to be hit with the shocking truth. HR had mistakenly booked the hotel for the wrong time and changed the ceremony schedule the day before. With everyone already in the ceremony, none of his co-workers could check their phones. Even though Keith explained that he hadn't received any notice, no one believed him, so he took a taxi to the venue. When he explained the situation to the staff at the door, they still refused to let him in. They didn't let you in? Why not? They said, you probably overslept and are just pretending you didn't get the notice, and called me irresponsible. I was speechless. Such an unprofessional response was shocking. It wasn't about Keith. Calling someone irresponsible without hearing them out is simply unacceptable for any employee. So, I guess it looks like I just skipped my own entrance ceremony. They must think I'm unreliable now. My wife gently placed a hand on his back to comfort him, but then her hand suddenly stopped. Her face grew paler and paler. Wondering what was going on, I moved behind Keith and immediately understood the reason. There, taped to his back, was a sheet of A4 paper. Seeing it made my anger boil over. What's wrong? Trying not to let him see, I carefully peeled the paper off. Scrawled across it were mocking words calling him useless. Grandpa's going to take care of this. Thank you, but really, you don't have to. I'd rather not have everyone know I'm your grandson. I'll prove myself starting tomorrow. This isn't just about you. If they treat one person like this, others will suffer too. Who did this? Keith stubbornly refused to tell me, but I have more experience in the workplace. I managed to persuade him and identified the employee who had made the harsh comment to Keith. With Keith in tow, I headed straight to the hotel where the ceremony was held. Well, look who's back, the rookie who missed his own ceremony. Standing in front of the entrance, a man sneered at Keith. Oh, you brought Grandpa along? Good for you. Beside him, a young woman mocked Keith as though she were talking to a child. Long time no see, Kevin. However, the moment I said that, the expression on Kevin's face, the head of human resources, froze. Why are you here? Kevin had always been problematic. He had excellent sales figures but was notorious for his arrogance toward junior employees while constantly flattering his superiors. When I was CEO, no amount of pressure from other executives could make me let him lead a team. But after I retired, it seemed they'd promoted him. When I first heard his name and title from Keith, I was genuinely stunned. The woman beside him must have joined the company after I stepped down. She was whispering, "Who is this?" clearly unaware of who I was. "This young man is my grandson, Kevin. You'll let us in, won't you?" "Of course. I'll escort you both inside immediately." Kevin snapped to attention as if saluting and directed the young woman to guide Keith inside. "So, you were the one who sent Keith home, weren't you? My deepest apologies. I thought I had notified everyone, so I assumed he was just making excuses for being late. Even if it were an excuse, it's unacceptable to call a new employee irresponsible. On top of that, you're the head of HR. I'll be conducting an internal review, and disciplinary action may follow." Kevin's face went blank at my stern words. "Sir, I don't always act this way. It's just that, well, my son was joining the company today, and I got carried away. Maybe a little overconfident." "Oh, is that so? You don't want disciplinary action with your son joining, I take it?" I placed my hands on his shoulders. "Now, tell me, who's that woman?" From the handwriting on the paper taped to Keith's back, it seemed likely she was responsible. Judging by her behavior, I had little doubt it was her doing. "She's my subordinate, Madison." "And what's your relationship with her?" Sweat began to pour down Kevin's face. "Relationship? I'm not sure what you mean. Not a professional one, clearly." "How about it?" "You don't have to tell me, but if you don't, I'll have no choice but to start a formal investigation." Kevin finally gave in and confessed that he was involved in an adult relationship with her. "So, you've divorced in the past 5 years, then?" "Well, not exactly. It's more of an in-between status." "In between? Which is it?" At my insistence, Kevin admitted that he was still on good terms with his wife and had never even considered divorce, despite seeing Madison on the side. "Since you've been honest, I'll let you go for today." "Thank you. I'll never forget this kindness." I left the event floor through one of the side doors. Not to truly leave, of course. I circled back through the hotel's main floor and requested to speak with Keller, the general manager. If Kevin remains head of HR, the company's in serious trouble. I needed to secure hard evidence to remove him from his position. I could press further, using his relationship with Madison as leverage, but that might allow him to make a comeback once things cool down. So, I contacted Michelle, my secretary, to probe from another angle while I persuaded Keller, the general manager I know, to lend me a uniform. With it, I personally infiltrated the venue. The time had come for the reception. The ceremony hall had shifted to an adjacent room, and everyone, minus a few, seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Hey, you're pretty bold, eating here when you couldn't even make it on time." A young man, who seemed to be a peer, put his arm around Keith's shoulder. "Kyle. One of the senior staff nearby told me to eat up, so I think it'd be rude not to." "Fair enough. Come over here, then." Kyle walked Keith to a table, then grabbed a chair from a line along the wall. I watched curiously as he set a large serving platter in front of Keith. Although the food was buffet style, Kyle had brought the entire platter. "Eat it all. You're supposed to have a big appetite, right? I couldn't possibly eat all this. Besides, other people probably want some too." "Don't like the sushi?" "I could swap it out for something else if you'd like." The man leaned in closer to Keith, who looked completely at a loss. "Don't make a fuss, or I'll tell my dad. I think even someone like you can remember I'm the son of the head of HR, right?" Resigned, Keith quietly began eating the sushi. I had to admit, Kevin's influence on his son was quite impressive. Spotting Kevin alone in a quieter moment, I approached him. Kevin, there's a message for you from the front desk. Dressed in uniform, I played the role of a hotel staff member. A message? Why would they leave a message at the desk when I've got my phone on me? They were very insistent on delivering it directly, from your Chairman Smith. It took Kevin a moment to realize that the staff member standing in front of him was actually me. Mr. Smith, I thought you'd already left. I remembered something I needed to take care of. Look over there. Kevin nearly fainted at the sight of his son forcing Keith to eat excessively. This is a welcome party for new employees. Have some common sense. It was surprising to hear Kevin even mention the word common sense. Stop that useless son of yours. But don't let on that he's my grandson. Understood. Kevin rushed across the room with determination. What do you think you're doing? Dad. I was just teaching this guy a lesson for getting too cocky. Disciplining employees is HR's job. You're a new hire yourself, so don't act like you're in charge. He had likely grown up being completely validated by his father. Kyle looked at Kevin with an expression of disbelief. Fine. You want me to stop, right? I'll stop. That's right. For the sake of my future, stop right now. Kevin had just felt relieved when Kyle deliberately tipped over a large platter of sushi onto the floor. Oops, looks like I slipped while trying to clean up. You can handle it. It seemed that Kyle had no intention of backing down. He tried to make Keith take care of it. Are you all right, sir? I approached Kyle from behind, maintaining my role as a staff member. Who are you? I'm with the venue staff. I'll take care of the food. Please continue enjoying yourselves. Keith noticed me and tried to assist, but I gestured subtly for him to hold back. I got down on my hands and knees on the fine carpet, picking up every last grain of rice. I'll help. Kevin, now flustered, began to follow my lead. Why are you helping, Dad? Let the hotel staff handle it. It's their job to cater to customers and do whatever we say. In a low voice, I leaned toward Kevin. They say children learn by example. Do you treat restaurant staff like this too? Of course not. My son just can't stand it when things don't go his way. Kevin's hands were shaking, and he kept missing grains of rice. Ever since training, you've been overly idealistic and creepy. With a sneer, Kyle closed the distance between him and Keith. Making kids smile? You sound like some children's TV host. What's wrong with wanting to make kids smile? Isn't that how this company began? Now you're bringing the company into this? Have you lost your mind? Kevin's face quickly grew pale. It was only natural, considering it was as if his own son had confessed to wrongdoing. Armed with some fresh information I'd gotten from Michelle earlier, I turned to Kyle. Have you ever actually looked at your company's website? Kyle was taken aback by the sudden change in the hotel staff's demeanor. Who do you think you are, talking down to me like that? Our company spends a fortune here. I could have my dad stop doing business with this hotel. Then I'll make sure your father can't pull something like that. I stood up, grabbed Kyle's arm with my rice-covered hand. Gross. Let go. Gross? So this is how you educate your son, letting him call his own company's chairman gross? I directed the question to Kevin, but he didn't respond. He was too preoccupied with quickly coming up with an excuse to protect himself, leaving no time to listen. What? Chairman? Seriously, does this hotel employ old men who can't even communicate properly? I figured it was about time, so I pulled up the image that had been sent to my phone. This is a record of a certain money transfer. Do you know what the money was for? Kyle glanced at the name on the transfer and seemed to realize immediately what it was about. I don't know. Then, answer me this, what is our company's mission statement? It's a question we always ask in executive interviews. There's no way you wouldn't know. Kyle said nothing. He must have realized that saying the wrong thing would end everything for him. If you don't answer, I'll assume you don't know. I just forgot, that's all. Forgot? That's strange. I glanced over at Keith. You just said it yourself a moment ago, didn't you? To bring smiles to as many children as possible. That's our company's mission. I forced Kevin, still kneeling on the floor, to stand up. It seems your son doesn't know our mission statement. I wonder why. My son said something so impressive in the interview that the board couldn't help but be impressed. Even the other executives praised him. Let's say that's true. Then how do you explain this image? The next image I displayed was a series of messages. It was a conversation between Kevin and one of the executives, the same man associated with the money transfer. So you paid $1,000 to make sure your son got hired, huh? I took a deep breath, trying to calm my anger, but I couldn't hold it back. What was the head of HR thinking? You shameless disgrace. I'm so sorry. While everyone in the room watched us intently, one woman was trying to sneak out quietly. It was Madison. Madison. I have proof you were involved in this, too. Don't even think about running. I couldn't go against Kevin. He threatened to spread my embarrassing photos if I didn't cooperate. She said in a frail voice, as if about to cry. It seemed she was trying to garner some sympathy, but Kyle wasn't having it. Hey, Madison. You told me when I was still in college that you'd make sure I got hired because you liked my face. Don't pretend you weren't the one leading the charge, only to try and save yourself now. What, Madison? No way. I only dated Madison because I liked her face, too. We both knew it was just for fun, so I didn't mind that she was still involved with my dad. That's all it was. Kevin was devastated, now fully aware that he and his son had been involved with the same woman. You remember that photo from my coming-of-age ceremony that you showed Madison? Turns out she liked it so much that she even waited for me at the university. I wish you hadn't shown it to her. This was beyond unbearable. I'll leave the three of you to deal with this yourselves. You'll have plenty of time to talk things over once you've left the company. Later, all three of them left the company, officially as voluntary resignations. Although it was meant to keep things quiet. Someone in HR who had a grudge against Kevin leaked the details of their departure to neighboring major firms. At every networking event attended by executives from various companies, I would hear, they applied here, but we turned them down. I couldn't shake a bad feeling about all of it. We should have done this from the start. Mr. Kennedy, please, let the three of us back into the company. When I was suddenly summoned by President Kennedy, I arrived to find Kevin and the others there. Apparently, they hadn't been able to secure new jobs and had been lingering at the entrance, refusing to leave until they met with him. Kennedy, the current president, is neither my son nor a relative. My son went to college in Tokyo with dreams of starting his own business, later securing a job in the city. Within a few years, he branched out on his own and is now successfully managing his own company. Kennedy and I don't just lack a close relationship, we're practically rivals. The three of them probably thought turning to him would somehow work in their favor. While I prioritize bringing joy to children regardless of cost, Kennedy is a strict realist. We rarely see eye to eye on anything. Mr. Kennedy, aren't you and Mr. Smith like cats and dogs? If you let us back in, it'd be the ultimate way to get under his skin. Don't you think? Madison, hoping to get closer to Kennedy, unbuttoned her shirt down to the third button and tried to make a move. Sure, we may not be on the best terms. But you know I'm a realist, right? Of course. I'm confident in my sales skills. Realistically, I'm a valuable asset, aren't I? It was only because I was in HR that things didn't work out. Put me in charge of sales this time. I'm a top-notch graduate from a prestigious university. Even as a new hire, I can deliver results right away. Let's get this old guy out of the company." Kennedy smiled slightly. They took his reaction as a sign they might be able to return to the company. Waiting eagerly for his next words, they watched him with hopeful faces. "If it came down to choosing between you three or Mr. Smith, I'd have to go with him. After all, his grandson is crucial to this company." Just when they thought they were about to claw their way back up, they felt like they'd been pushed off a cliff and into despair. "You're aware, aren't you? The rice flour cookies that helped revive our business, that was his idea." Just when I was starting to feel like I'd reached my limit, I asked Keith what kind of sweets were trending lately. He told me. "I'm really into rice flour treats, but I wish they were more affordable and easier to get." The cookies inspired by his idea became a hit, especially praised by parents of children with wheat allergies. With the product's success, we expanded it into a series, making it one of our flagship items. We needed someone with an eye for trends and a good sense of taste. Plus, having the founder's grandson join with the same passion as his grandfather provides a perfect backstory. If he creates another hit product, the media will be all over it. No way am I letting that kind of talent slip through my fingers. As for the three who were so quickly cut off, I decided to tell them what I hadn't had the chance to say before. "You dragged me into your twisted web of relationships, and it distracted me for a moment. But listen, rice is a valuable raw material for our company. Neither people who would throw rice to the ground nor their parents who raised them to be like that have any place here." As the three remained frozen in place, Kennedy looked over at me with a glint of amusement. "What, they threw rice on the ground? Wish I'd seen that. Please don't joke about things like that, even in jest." Kennedy has no use for social gatherings. He routinely avoids them, including company parties. Even at the annual orientation ceremony, he leaves as soon as he's done with his speech. Had he been present at that moment, things would have probably gotten even messier. I was grateful he hadn't been there. Curious about what happened to those three later on, I asked Michelle to look into it, and found they were in an unexpected place. All three, even Madison, ended up working at Kevin's wife's company. Kevin's wife had taken over her father's construction business. Madison initially resisted working at the same company as her affair partner's wife, but she had leaned on Kevin from the start, barely doing any actual work. Since she couldn't find another man in power to rely on, she reluctantly agreed to stay on. Though they tried to keep their relationship secret, someone had tipped off Kevin's wife. Knowing everything, she hired them anyway, intending to teach her husband and his lover a lesson and to re-educate her son. She put them to work not in the office, but out in the field. It was clear that none of the three were cut out for manual labor. When Kennedy heard the story, he went to the construction site to capture the scene on video. Amused as they were repeatedly yelled at by a supervisor. I can only hope that this experience reminded them of a childhood lesson to never do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. So, Keith, are you enjoying working at the company? About 6 months had passed since he joined the company. I had heard something from Kennedy, so I brought it up with Keith over dinner. "Well, actually, there's a project I'm working on that might get approved soon. I can't share details yet, but if it goes through, I'll buy some for you, Grandpa." "Is that so? I'll be looking forward to it." In truth, I already knew all about the project, but I pretended not to, wanting to see the joy on his face. Keith is working on developing a modern version of rice crackers, aiming to release a product that represents our style. He plans to launch a spiced version geared toward adults to first capture the attention of parents, eventually expanding the line to include products for children. Kennedy gave it his strong approval, saying it was sure to be a hit, considering it sounded like a moneymaker. "I'll protect this company that Grandpa started from a humble candy store." Hearing such words from my promising grandson, my wife and I felt determined to stay around for as long as possible. "Can you actually see?" I approached the beautiful woman with a white cane whom I often see on the train, gathering the courage to speak to her. She stiffened, then turned her face toward me. And then, from her mouth came a shocking response I never would have expected. It turns out, the guy who was harassing her was the same one who constantly gave me trouble at work. By sheer chance, I witnessed the whole thing. Normally, I'm not very confident and tend to be timid, but I knew I couldn't just stand by. I summoned all the courage I could. Apologized to her. She's carrying a white cane, so she's visually impaired, right? How could you bring yourself to hurt someone like that? I saw you raise your hand against her. My name is Benjamin, and I'm 41. I work for Foster Foods, a company that operates cafes like Roasting Village and Foster Beans, which are popular across the country. Luckily, my hard work was recently recognized, and I was appointed leader of the new product development team for the upcoming year. At my age, I shouldn't feel this way, but I'm not exactly the most confident person. I've known for a while that I need to change, and this new opportunity made me think, this is my chance to really turn things around. Right now, I'm not especially close with my colleagues. I always feel a little out of place and hesitant to join the group. So, I thought I'd start by getting closer to my team and building a strong spirit in our product development team. Maybe I feel left out because I'm still single. Or am I the only one thinking that? No, I don't think that's the case. Even I once had someone I promised to marry. Her name was Sarah, 3 years my senior. She would say I'd bring out her nurturing side and push her way into my life, like a devoted wife-to-be. Back then, I was in my 20s, and I didn't exactly mind. Then, one day, she suddenly asked to break up. You're just too unreliable. You're always passive, and I don't feel any real love from you. I started to worry about marrying you. Her words left me stunned. I thought things were headed toward marriage, no problem, but then, out of nowhere, she changed her tune. Seeing my fumbling response, Sarah grew even more disappointed and left. Since then, I haven't been able to shake my discomfort around women or people in general, really. After work, people in the department often go out for meals or drinks together, but I always head straight home by myself. An hour-long train ride takes me back to my apartment. It's the one place where I can truly relax. Our new product development team has 5 members, including me. With summer approaching, Henry, our department head, asked us to focus on refreshing cold drinks and new desserts. As the chosen team leader, I want to meet Henry's expectations. I was ready to give it my all. But then, almost immediately, a problem arose. Benjamin is way too desperate. It's so cringy. This guy on my team, Kevin, makes it no secret that he dislikes me. He's constantly giving me this mocking look. But now that I'm the leader, I want to make it work with everyone. Ignoring his comment, I spoke up to the group. Let's work hard on this new product development. The team exchanged glances, giving each other a knowing look. Feeling awkward, I ended up bowing my head a bit. Oh, yeah, looking forward to it. Seeing my apologetic demeanor, they all burst out laughing. It didn't feel like friendly laughter, it was more like they were laughing at me. My intentions were increasingly going astray. This is bad. A leader like him? No thanks. Kevin muttered, making sure I could hear. His words hurt, but, embarrassingly, I couldn't muster a response. After that, he started avoiding me completely. He ignored me even when I greeted him and openly showed his hostility. Finally, the day came for our team's first presentation. I'll be in the meeting room on the 3rd floor, so please gather there. I called out and headed there ahead of everyone. I wondered what ideas everyone would bring. Excited, I set up the tea in the meeting room and waited. But even after 15 minutes, no one showed up. Thinking something might have happened, I went to check, only to find the 4 of them still seated at their desks, chatting away. At first, I thought they were just enjoying themselves until I realized it was a session of bad-mouthing me. Man, making us all gather in the meeting room, what a drag. The others chuckled. I felt a pang of quiet hurt. Benjamin's usually so dull and gloomy, and now he's suddenly all gung-ho. It's exhausting just watching him. Remarks like that started coming up, too. Is that really how they see me? The pain made me quietly withdraw. Since that day, I've been losing sleep, constantly thinking about how I can get along with everyone. One day after work, I decided to take the plunge. If you're free, would you like to grab a drink? I'd love to get to know everyone better, I suggested, proposing a social outing. Everyone looked at me. Maybe this could work. There's a new place nearby that serves great seafood. How about we go there, have some good food, and have an open chat? That's what we call drinking harassment. Kevin responded with a cold stare. I tried to explain that wasn't my intent, but he wouldn't listen. Oh, well, we don't have to drink, just enjoying a good meal together is fine too, right? Silence filled the air, no one agreed. Feeling defeated, I grabbed my bag. Well, I'll think of another idea sometime. I bowed my head and left the office, sighing at how poorly things were going. Then, on the train ride home, I stumbled upon something shocking. A message notification popped up on my free chat app, so I opened it casually. It was from one of the team members. Having a great time with the team, read the message, with a photo of everyone but me, looking happy together. A classic wrong recipient message. The place was, of all places, that seafood restaurant I had suggested. So, they really do dislike me. I slumped in disappointment. The shock was too much, so the next day, I stopped Kevin to try and talk. Predictably, he ignored me. So I turned to Kimberly, the member who had accidentally sent the message. Look, I know it's awkward to ask, but I can't figure out why everyone seems to hate me. If there's something I can fix, I'd really like to know. Could you tell me? Maybe she felt sorry seeing how desperate I was, so Kimberly spoke in a low voice. Her tone made it clear she was angry. I think Kevin has every right to be upset. It's because of things like that you lose everyone's trust. I had no idea what she meant, so I just stared blankly at her. Benjamin, you're seducing girls in their 20s, aren't you? I mean, you pretend to be all quiet. But there's talk that you're actually a pretty shady guy. What? Girls in their 20s? Me? No way. I'd never do something like that. It seemed like there was a huge misunderstanding. I desperately tried to explain that they had the wrong person, but no one believed me. After all, Kevin was confidently claiming he had evidence, so no one would even listen to my side. Evidence? What could he possibly have? At least now I understood why people looked at me like I was some kind of creep, but I had no idea how to clear this up. I was at a loss. After gathering some information, I discovered the truth. Kevin has a much younger sister. Her boyfriend has the same name as me and lives in the same area. In other words, Kevin mistakenly believes his sister is dating me. I sighed deeply. His sister is still in her 20s. If he thinks his sister's boyfriend is an unimpressive guy in his 40s like me, it's no wonder Kevin is upset. Apparently, he's strongly opposed to the relationship. But I have nothing to do with it, this is all just a misunderstanding. In fact, it's a nuisance. I need to explain this clearly. I set out to find Kevin and clear up the misunderstanding. Determined, I looked around the office for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Apparently, he was off stirring up more trouble. He had gone directly to Henry to make his case. I think Kimberly would be a better fit for team leader than Benjamin. She's popular with the team. And remember her coffee jelly creation that became such a hit? Compared to her, Benjamin has no track record and zero support. Henry looked troubled by what Kevin said. He replied that he'd think it over and urged Kevin to return to the office. Later, Henry called me in. You have to get the team together. I promoted you because I thought you could handle it, don't let me down. Feeling defeated, I took the train home with a heavy heart. Then I remembered it was Tuesday. Lately, there was something I looked forward to. Every Tuesday and Friday, a beautiful, fair-skinned woman with a white cane boards the same train car as me. For some reason, when there's an open seat, she always ends up sitting beside me. I don't know why she chooses to sit next to me each time. But, really, any reason is fine. It simply makes me happy. She's like a breath of fresh air in my difficult daily life. I found myself wondering if I'd see her again today. Even though it's only 2 stops, just seeing her on those Tuesdays and Fridays lightens my mood a bit. The day of the second new product presentation arrived. I worried that no one would show up again, like last time. But this time, Henry would be there, so at least they wouldn't boycott. My idea for a new iced coffee with mint chocolate flavoring was ruthlessly criticized. This is the worst thing I've ever tasted, and it's so off-putting, there's no way this will sell. The criticism was brutal. I chuckled bitterly at their harshness. Instead, Kevin's iced coffee paired with sweet bean jelly was praised as a masterpiece. The bitterness of the coffee and the cold, refreshing taste goes perfectly with the sweet red bean paste. This will be a hit for sure, everyone echoed. Henry looked at me with a disappointed expression. Then Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, presented her new dessert idea. It was an almond jelly parfait. This one also received high praise. After the presentation, Henry muttered, "Maybe I need to reconsider a few things." I felt completely sidelined. I regretted not being able to meet Henry's expectations. Would Kimberly end up taking over as the team leader after all? Maybe it'd be better if I just stepped aside. On the train ride home, I was lost in thought when the woman with the white cane boarded. She sat down beside me, just like always. For some reason, I suddenly felt like talking to her, so I gathered my courage and spoke up. "You always sit next to me, don't you?" She flinched in surprise. "Can you actually see?" She tensed up, then turned her face toward me. Then, to my shock, she responded with something I hadn't anticipated. "What do you mean by that? Are you suggesting I'm just pretending to have a disability?" She was visibly getting angrier. "Oh no. That wasn't my intention at all." I quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way." "But don't you realize how offensive that question was?" "You're absolutely right. That was thoughtless of me." Our exchange had drawn attention in the train. I decided to get off at her usual stop to continue apologizing. "There are people watching here, so I'll get off at the next stop. Please, let me keep apologizing. I mean, if you don't mind, it's your usual stop. After all." She gave a silent nod. Once we were on the platform, I launched into a desperate explanation. "Really, it wasn't that I doubted you or anything. It's just that you always sit next to me, and I couldn't help but wonder why. But I see now that I made you uncomfortable, and I'm truly sorry." I gathered every possible word of apology and kept apologizing to her. Gradually, her demeanor began to soften. "I understand. I overreacted, too." I got a bit heated. Relieved, I exhaled deeply. "I'm Ashley." Since she introduced herself, I went ahead and gave my name as well. "I'm Benjamin." Her eyebrows raised slightly. "Oh. Is something wrong?" "No," Ashley smiled. "Your question, about why I always sit next to you, it's because of the scent." Surprised, I instinctively lifted my arm and took a sniff. I ended up making a loud sniffing sound, so she probably realized what I was doing. Ashley laughed softly. "It's not a bad smell. It's the coffee aroma. I love coffee, and every time I sit next to you, there's this wonderful scent." I sighed in relief. I work for a company that operates coffee chains, actually places like Roasting Village and Foster Beans. Oh, there's a Foster Beans near my place. I'm quite the regular there. The tension in the air eased. Ah, thank goodness. So that was the reason. My question was answered, and I was genuinely happy to talk to Ashley. I felt a bit giddy. But unfortunately, Kevin happened to witness this scene. Since he thought I was dating his sister, he flew into a rage. "Benjamin! You scumbag! I told you to stay away from my sister." He suddenly lunged at me, yelling. His loud outburst startled Ashley beside me, causing her to stumble. In his agitation, Kevin didn't even notice her white cane. He ended up bumping into her. Ashley fell to her hands on the floor. Angry that she hadn't moved out of his way, Kevin started hurling insults at her. "What the hell are you doing?" I put a hand on Ashley's shoulder as she crouched on the floor. "Are you okay?" She sighed, relieved. "Yes." She looked pale. She must have been terrified. I glared at Kevin. That was uncalled for. Only then did Kevin notice her white cane. "Oh, so she's blind. Move out of the way. You should be taking the train when it's not crowded." I angrily rebuked him. "How can you say something like that? What was that?" We glared at each other. I had reached my limit. I didn't care if this got me removed from the team leader position or kicked off the team. This time, I was determined to say everything I'd kept bottled up. I was furious that Kevin had insulted Ashley, who had nothing to do with this. Apologize to her. She's holding a white cane, meaning she has a visual impairment. How could you bring yourself to hurt someone like that? Oh, shut up. You pretend to be a feminist when it suits you, but you're just a sleazeball hitting on women. Don't you dare mess with my sister. I've tried to tell you many times that it's a misunderstanding. Why won't you listen?" Kevin looked shocked that I was responding so directly. "You're acting totally different. Usually, you're such a wimp, never saying a thing. I didn't think you could talk back like this. You're just trying to impress her because she's pretty, right?" He shot a smug look at Ashley. I firmly told him that this was an entirely separate matter. It was true, I had noticed her before. But now was not the time to be talking about that. "You're mistaken, Kevin. I'm not the one dating your sister. I have proof. You said your birthday was on the weekend, didn't you?" My sister also mentioned celebrating her boyfriend's birthday on that same day. I hesitated, lost for words. With the same name, living in the same area, and sharing the same birthday, I could see how it all seemed like an unbelievable coincidence. Even to me. Kevin scoffed. "See, you can't even deny it. And now you're trying to go after this woman too? You just see my sister as an obstacle, don't you? Unforgivable. I don't know about the birthday, but I'm telling you, there's nothing between me and your sister, or between me and Ashley. I don't trust you. Break up with my sister." I suddenly realized that everyone on the platform was watching us, and someone even asked, "Shall we call the station staff?" It was only natural that everyone was watching, given how loud the commotion had become. I felt my face flush. Just then, Ashley, who had been silent up until now, suddenly spoke up. That voice. I've heard it before. "You're the brother of a friend of mine, aren't you?" Kevin looked bewildered as she addressed him. "My name is Ashley. My friend's name is Natalie." "You're her brother, right?" She had perfectly guessed Kevin's sister's name. His eyes widened in surprise. "Yes, my sister's name is Natalie." "But..." Kevin looked skeptical, tilting his head. "Prove that you're actually her friend." Ashley gave a slight smile. "Natalie talks like this, doesn't she?" She began mimicking her. I couldn't tell, but it must have been a spot-on impression. Kevin looked astonished. "She has this slightly babyish, nasal way of talking. It's a unique voice, hard to mimic. But you really got it right. I remember because I hear it all the time." Ashley looked a bit proud of herself. Then she added, "I even have a photo showing her phone. It was a picture of her and Kevin's sister, standing side by side. That's Natalie. I see. But what kind of friend are you to her? All her friends are usually young and flashy. Kevin, arms crossed, asked her a question. Ashley was clearly older than his sister. In fact, she looked about the same age as Kevin himself. I met Natalie at an English conversation class. Although I can't see, I have an active personality and love trying new things. That's right. My sister loves traveling abroad, so she takes English classes. Kevin murmured. Now he understood that Ashley was indeed a friend of his sister's. But he was still puzzled as to how Ashley had recognized his voice. Ashley, where did you hear my voice? And how do you remember it? Do you really want to know? You're making this sound like an interrogation. Ashley grew exasperated with Kevin's persistence. Still, she kindly explained. Kevin's sister knows that Ashley has an exceptional sense of hearing, so when they communicate, she often uses various audio recordings. For example, she plays her own videos. In one from a beach trip, Ashley can hear the sound of waves, the ocean breeze, people's voices, and even the voices of her family members. Ashley gets to listen to these sounds firsthand. And then Kevin's sister adds explanations to help her understand. Natalie is very kind. She introduces me to so many new things. Apparently, some of those videos included her brother Kevin's voice. At this point, Kevin finally apologized to Ashley. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were my sister's friend. That was rude of me. But I'm not apologizing to Benjamin. Kevin remained firm. This guy's been leading my sister on. That's absolutely not true. I insisted firmly. Kevin turned to Ashley. Ashley, have you ever heard anything about Natalie's boyfriend? Isn't it this guy? He asked, pointing at me. This guy's way too old to be messing around with a girl in her 20s. There's something really off about him. And he's my senior at work, a guy with no ambition and nothing respectable about him. Of course, as her brother, I'd be completely against it. Kevin declared. Ashley chuckled softly. What's so funny? He's not Natalie's boyfriend. I felt an immense wave of relief, unable to keep a smile from my face. But Kevin's frustration only grew. What? How would you know that? The scent is different. The scent again. I was amazed by Ashley's incredible sense of smell. Wait, Ashley, have you actually met Natalie's boyfriend? Kevin asked, leaning in with interest. No, I haven't met him, she explained. But I know because I've met Natalie after their dates, and she had a lovely scent on her. My heart skipped a beat. A lovely scent? What could that mean? It was unmistakably the smell of shampoo or hair products. I'm sure her boyfriend is a hairstylist. But right now, both Benjamin and Kevin smell like coffee. Kevin was taken aback. Amazing. I find the smell of coffee comforting, so that's why I always sit next to Benjamin. He's been wondering why. But I knew from the start that he worked at a coffee chain. So I can say with confidence that this is a case of mistaken identity. Encouraged by Ashley's reliable testimony, I felt a surge of courage. Having witnessed Ashley's incredible abilities, Kevin was momentarily speechless. Plus, Natalie often confides in me about her struggles with you, Ashley continued. She's been worried, saying that recently, you two have been fighting a lot. She's concerned because you two were once so close. She wonders if it's her fault for causing you trouble. What? Natalie said that? Kevin and I both felt a pang of emotion at her words. Hey, Ashley. Sorry for the wait. To our surprise, it was none other than Kevin's sister, Natalie, who appeared. Huh? What are you doing here, big brother? Well, what? What's going on? Ashley smiled. It turned out she had planned to meet Kevin's sister today. What a coincidence! Kevin was flustered and at a loss for words. Meanwhile, his sister casually dropped a surprising revelation. Yeah, dating an older guy just didn't work for me. We broke up. What? With Benjamin here? Kevin pointed at me. This time, it was Natalie's turn to look surprised. Huh? Who's this? I'd never seen him before. See? Right, Natalie? We're complete strangers, aren't we? Yeah, pretty much. She replied casually. Kevin turned beet red and bowed deeply to me. I'm so sorry. Hearing the whole story, Natalie also apologized for the trouble her brother's misunderstanding had caused me. What were you even thinking, big brother? My bad. My ex's name is Benjamin, yes, but that's just the name he uses for work. His real name is different. It's a trend among star hairstylists to use alternate names. I glanced at Ashley. Ashley's face lit up as she spoke. So, Natalie's ex really was a hairstylist. Sorry, Ashley, I hadn't mentioned it. But it doesn't matter now, we broke up. Anyway, big brother. Kevin, seeing the stern look on his sister's face, began to look uneasy. Taking out your frustrations on others because of me? That's the worst. I'm disappointed in you. But, birthdays and everything, it was such a rare coincidence. I really thought it was Benjamin. So persistent. I couldn't have celebrated with him on his actual birthday. He has weekdays off, remember? Oh, right. When it came to his sister, Kevin seemed to lose all common sense. I was just worried. Don't talk to me anymore. Kevin, elbowed aside by his sister, looked utterly dejected. Ashley and I watched, unable to hold back our laughter. Kevin looked completely defeated after being cut off by his sister. Then, a shocking revelation surfaced within the new product development team. The iced coffee with sweet bean jelly that Kevin had presented turned out to be a copy of a competitor's product. Henry was furious and removed Kevin from the team. Rumor had it he'd be transferred to a subsidiary in the next round of reassignments. Kevin lost his confidence and became a completely different, much gloomier person. Once the center of attention, he now spent his time in a corner of the office, with copier maintenance as his only real task. As for my new creation, the mint chocolate flavored iced coffee. Since that incident, Ashley and I had grown closer, and she helped me come up with an improved version. We added a scoop of mint chocolate ice cream to the iced coffee. Through trial and error, adjusting the blend and roast of the coffee beans, we arrived at a fresh new taste. With Ashley's encouragement, I finally worked up the courage to present it. Wow! This is actually really good. Even Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, gave it her stamp of approval, and Henry complimented me with a nod, saying, "Well done." The new drink was soon approved to be launched as a product at Foster Beans. When I shared the news with Ashley, she was thrilled for me. Though it had been a bumpy road, the misunderstandings with my team were finally cleared up, and we were working together in a positive atmosphere. And now, my goal is to create a coffee that someday Ashley herself might call her favorite.